Today I want to show you how you can safely buy and sell used gear, but first I need to tell you the story of how I bought this lens, thinking it was a good lens and it worked just fine, only to get home and realize that it didn't. Hey, my name's Jake and I create content here to help solo creators on the go. So I do lots of drone, camera, lens, other video and photo related equipment reviews, and I give you tips and tutorials on how to use them. If that's something that interests you, consider subscribing. Today I want to tell you the tale of two lenses. This lens I bought off Facebook Marketplace here, and at first it seemed to be fine, and this lens I bought through Gear Focus, the sponsor of today's video. The problem started when I decided I want to make a video about kit lenses comparing to a better lens like this G lens here. And so I started watching Facebook Marketplace for a cheap kit lens because I figured $150, maybe $200, I could get a cheap kit lens in good shape and be able to show the difference in photo quality, the difference in video performance. And lo and behold, a few days go by after I was watching Facebook Marketplace and this lens popped up for $150. I messaged the person who was selling it, said everything works on it, the lens is in good shape. He messaged back, yes, everything works, it's a great lens, I'm only selling it because I've upgraded to another lens. Great, let's meet, I want to test the lens, and then if everything works, I'll give you the money and we can go our separate ways. We met, I tested the lens, took a few photos, looked at them, everything looked good, took a little video clip, looked at it, everything looked good, so I gave the man his money and we went on our separate ways. It was only later after I got home that I realized this lens was actually faulty. And the problem was that this lens would focus for a photo, and it would focus for about 30 seconds of video. And then the focus system would reset. I later found out it was because of a broken ribbon cable inside of this lens, but I messaged the gentleman who sold this to me. I said, hey, your lens is faulty. This is what it's doing. I need to meet you. I need my money back and you can, do whatever you want with the lens. Well, of course, he never got back to me. So I was out the $150, never heard back from him again. And yeah, I now have this nice little paperweight that I don't know what I'm gonna do with, because to replace the ribbon cable is more than this lens is worth. And that's where we come to the sponsor of today's video, Gear Focus. I'd been wanting to try the 20mm G lens and compare it to the 24mm G Master. Just for fun, I wanted to see what this lens was capable of compared to that one, and I also wanted a second lens that I could film in really low light video with. This lens seemed to fit all of those bills. So I purchased this lens on Gear Focus. It was shipped to me by the gentleman who sold it to me. We had a great transaction. I tested the lens when it arrived. Everything worked great. And so I messaged him, said, great, everything's good, and marked my order complete. There are a few reasons that I started using Gear Focus a couple of years ago. And one of the biggest was protection, because both parties are protected through that transaction, and the money that is exchanging hands doesn't exchange hands completely until both parties are completely happy with the transaction, which is huge, obviously, as I've been burned before. Another reason though, I have bought and sold a lot of used gear, including building an entire recording studio completely out of about $60,000 worth of used recording equipment that I bought off another online marketplace and then sold on another online marketplace. Gear Focus is really great, and the reason I started using them is because their fees are considerably less than other online marketplaces. And the other reason I started using Gear Focus is it's a targeted market. They specialize in video equipment, photo equipment, sound equipment for video and photo work, drones, everything that has to do with that. They don't sell sweaters, they don't sell pieces of toast that look like some famous person. I don't know what else sells on other online marketplaces, but Gear Focus is a platform really focused on creating a place where creatives like you and I can buy and sell used equipment safely and also at a much better rate than other platforms on the market. Now, before Gear Focus reached out to me and asked about sponsoring a video, I had used Gear Focus a few different times to sell used gear. My philosophy on used gear is basically, if I haven't used a piece of gear in about 1 year, it's time for it to go because it's just taking up space and there's no reason for me to keep it around. So if you're like me and you have a little bit of extra gear sitting around and you might want to sell that gear so that you can reinvest that money into other gear or new gear that you might actually be using, then here's 5 steps on how to sell your used gear on Gear Focus. Step 1. Find all of your used gear that you haven't used in a year, test it, make sure it works, make sure you can give an accurate description, and then find out what that used gear will sell for by doing a little bit of research online. Step 2, take really good, high quality photos of that used gear to make sure that people can accurately see the entire piece of gear, make sure they know if there's any specific areas that have extra wear and tear or maybe a little bit of damage on them, and take special photos of those areas so that the buyer or whoever might be interested in that piece of gear can make a good informed decision about whether or not they want to purchase yours. Step 3, sign up for an account at Gear Focus and start listing all of the used gear you want to sell. Now here's where it gets important that you take very good photos and put those photos on your listing, as well as making sure you include a good, accurate description. Describe anything special about the equipment. Make sure you list any extras that come with that equipment. If there's any damage or anything that's not functional, you want to make sure and include that in the description so that the buyer is not going to be caught unaware if there's something to do with. I did sell a piece of gear that had a pretty good little scratch on one part of it. I made sure to take a photo of that piece of gear and that scratch, and then also list it in the description. And this is where you include the price that hopefully you were able to research earlier. Find out what the average selling price of many of these things are, and then list it for whatever the price is you want. If you want to sell something fast, you obviously need to list it at a good price. And this is where Gear Focus recently added a nice feature that allows you to add a possibility for a buyer to make an offer. Say you want to sell a lens for $500, but you're willing to maybe negotiate on that. You can add the make an offer option. And if you want to, you can add a minimum to that make an offer function so that, say, somebody's not going to come along and offer you $150 for your $500 lens. Once it's listed, you publish that listing, and then you sit back, drink a lot of coffee, and wait for a buyer to come along and say, yes, I want to buy that piece of equipment. Step 4, your item sells. An offer comes in, you accepted it, or maybe it sells for full price. You want to package that up very well and very carefully and ship it out to the proud, happy new owner. Make sure that you ship it with a signature confirmation or a signature required for delivery so that you have proof, and Gear Focus has proof, that the item was delivered to the intended recipient. Shipping signature required is important so that the gear can't disappear off somebody's front porch because it requires the shipper to obtain a signature from the actual recipient or the person in the house. So you know that piece of gear didn't get dropped off on a front porch or at a mailbox and then magically disappear into the ether. Once you've packaged it up and dropped it off with the shipper, it's important to go into Gear Focus and add the tracking information there so that Gear Focus, the buyer, and you can all see when and how exactly the package was delivered. Step 5, once the package has been delivered, the buyer can then test a piece of equipment out, make sure it matches the description that you entered into the listing, and mark complete on the item that they purchased. That will release the funds because Gear Focus knows that, hey, the buyer is happy with the transaction, so we can release the funds to the seller. And once in a while, a buyer will forget to mark complete on the transaction, that they're happy with it, and so I will send people a message and just say, hey, I saw that it arrived. I hope everything's good. Let me know if you have any questions. And if you're happy with the product, go ahead and mark the sale complete. And occasionally that won't work either, but Gear Focus waits a set number of days so that there's an opportunity for the buyer to test the equipment, make sure it's good, and then if they don't ask for a return at that point, then Gear Focus will close that sale, mark it as complete, and release the funds to you. Once the funds have been released, you can enter some bank account information and be able to transfer that money directly to your bank account. And then you can use that money to shop for other gear, because a lot of us have gear acquisition syndrome, like I did with this 20mm lens that I purchased off Gear Focus a few weeks ago, and I'm extremely happy with. Unlike this kit lens, which basically cost me $150 for a glorified paperweight. Now, if you want to know what gear I think is fantastic for solo creators like me and maybe like you, click or tap right there. I'll see you in one of those videos. As always, if you have questions, ask me in the comments below or join my live stream Wednesday nights at 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you again soon in the next video. Cheers.